Welcome back. Now, I'd like to start this chapter identifying why having the wrong mindset has such a negative, outwardly visible impact on your life and career. Then we'll talk about what you can do to change your mindset. Here's the problem. The reality is, folks, is that we all have problems. Every man, every woman watching this program has challenges. And the irony is we all have the exact same three problems: money problems, relationship problems, and health problems. Nobody gets out alive. Nobody gets through life without getting their teeth kicked in from time to time. I mean, think about it. In your life, either at some point when you're young, midlife, or when you're old, you're going to face a financial difficulty. You're going to lose your job, or your dad's going to get fired. You're going to go bankrupt. You're going to have a foreclosure on your house. Bad things happen to good people. We're all going to face relationship challenges. People get divorced. People argue with family members. You know, husbands and wife fight, kids fight. We fight with our neighbors. We fight with society. We're all going to have relationship challenges in our life. And then we're all going to have health problems, mental, spiritual, or physical health problems. The reality is we're going to deal with people that have mental health issues. We may have them ourselves. We may have physical health issues. Someone you know is going to get sick and die. The reality is we're all going to face the ultimate health challenge when we leave this planet. So life is full of problems: relationship, money, and health problems. Everybody has to face them. You know, it reminds me of that old scene from Tombstone, where Wyatt Earp in the movie, one of his brothers is killed and the other one is shot. And he's down at the train station. He's going to look for the red bandana guys. And he's on the train station on the platform. And he says, "You tell him Wyatt Earp's coming, and hell's coming with him." You see, life is coming, and hell's coming with it. One of my favorite books is a book called The Road Less Traveled, written by M. Scott Peck. The first few words of that book: life is difficult. And the better you get at dealing with problems, the more successful you are. In a large part, you could say the better you are at dealing with bullshit in your life, the more successful you are. Sometimes people struggle with problems, and you can take a measure of a man or of a woman by the size of the problems that get them down. I was just recently in a situation on an airplane, and one flight was getting in late, and I was going to miss my connecting flight, and I'm looking at the times on my app, and I can see I'm going to miss the flight, and there's nothing I can do about it. I don't control the airlines, the weather. And there was this lady and her husband sitting next to me, and they obviously were getting ready to miss their flight too, and they were we're still in the air, and they're bouncing around trying to get their bags and just causing all kind of stress and anxiety for everybody around them. The plane lands, and I stand up. I'm in the aisle seat. They're trying to fight past me, and I'm like, we're going to get out when we get out of the plane, ma'am. I mean, with all due respect. Well, we're going to miss our flight. She says, well, I said, how much time do you have? She goes, we got like 20 minutes. I said, ma'am, my flight left 5 minutes ago. I might get to the gate. They might be holding it. I don't know if they're holding it for me, but there's nothing I can do. There's nothing you can do about it. So let's just all take a breath. But it's amazing to me how someone gets so worked up about something they can't control, something that's a relatively minor problem. There's other flights. It's not the last flight of the universe. The challenge is learning to thrive in the face of these challenges. That's where the prosperity mindset comes in. It's what the power of consistency is all about. Creating a prosperity mindset, a mindset that is designed and programmed to thrive in the face of adversity, to prosper in the face of challenges. Listen, if your plan for life is to start enjoying life when this happens or when that happens, you're going to be waiting for a long time. You're going to be waiting forever. The reality is things are never going to be perfect. If you're waiting for the relationship problems to be over, the money problems to be over, the health problems to be over before you can be happy, good luck. You're going to be waiting a long time. The key to success in life is to learn to thrive in the face of obstacles and difficulties. Now, here's the beautiful part. Here's the solution. All you have to do is come to know in your heart of hearts that the things you want in life are going to happen. You don't have to know when, and you don't have to know exactly how. Lao Tzu once said, 1,000-mile journey begins with what? A single step. It's not about the 100th step. It's about what can I do next? What can I do today? What step can I take today to improve the quality of my life? The reality is all you have to know is that you're going to get there, and the first one or two steps you have to take. Don't suffer from the paralysis through analysis. Don't try to figure out every step about creating prosperity or every step towards having a happy marriage. Just focus on what you can do first. What do I want? What do I got to do to get it? What one or two things can I do to get it? Let me share with you a story that really illustrates this point, that you only have to know that it's going to happen and what you have to do first. I mentioned to you earlier that the first book that I read on my journey after my father passed away was The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Well, many years later, in 2008, I had written the manuscript to my first book, The Upside of Fear. And it was December of 2008. My publisher called me and they said, hey, the book's coming out in September of 2009, and we want you to start thinking about endorsements. Who would you like to have endorse the book? And of course I said, Stephen R. Covey. And they said, Mr. Long, you're not going to get a Stephen Covey endorsement. Nobody knows you. He doesn't know you. We were thinking like your mother or a neighbor, maybe the mayor in your town could endorse the book. You're not going to get a Stephen Covey endorsement. Well, they didn't know what I know, folks. And that is, if I know it's going to happen and I know the next step, I can make it happen. So I took out my prosperity plan, and you'll be learning more about this as the program develops. I took out my prosperity plan and I wrote one line on there. Stephen R. Covey has endorsed the upside of fear. Every single morning when I got up and read my prosperity plan, I would read that. I would visualize meeting Dr. Covey. I would visualize what it would mean for me to have an endorsement from someone of that stature. Every day I'd meditate on it, view it, picture it, see it. Now, I didn't just think about it and want it. I would start taking action every single day. So we started calling the Franklin Covey organization, trying to reach him, sending letters, sending manuscripts, everything we could do. We're not going to just sit back and wait. We have to take consistent action. 5 months go by. 5 months go by, we can't even get in touch with the secretary's assistant to the assistant's assistant of Stephen R. Covey. It was hopeless, seemed hopeless, but I knew it would happen. Finally, in May of 2009, 5 months later, 5 months after I was reading it and believing it every day, my speaking manager comes to me and says, hey, you're speaking to a business group downtown Colorado Springs where I live. So I go to do this luncheon, and just before they introduce me to the platform, a guy stands up to make some announcements. And he turns to the crowd and he says, hey, folks, most of you here know my daughter Julie is Stephen Covey's personal assistant. And they're going to be in town next month. If anyone here would like to meet Dr. Covey, just let me know. And like that, I was 5 feet from a guy who could put me in touch with Dr. Covey. Then, of course, they introduced me, so I come up and I'm doing my keynote. And, of course, I always talk about Dr. Covey because he was so instrumental in my life. He didn't just change my life, he saved my life. And so every time I mentioned Dr. Covey, this guy in the first row would be nodding his head, and I'd be nodding my head. And he's like, yeah, we're connecting on the whole Stephen Covey thing. And I finished my keynote. He comes walking up to me, and he goes, hey, Dr. Covey's got to read your book. I'm like, no, he needs to read my book. I've been trying 5 months to get my book in his hand, the manuscript. He says, well, my daughter, I said, I heard the announcement, right? So he takes out his phone, beep, boop, boop, beep, boop, boop. Honey, I got a guy standing in front of me. His name's Weldon Long. He spent 13 years in prison. Stephen's book changed his life. Now he's got a book of his own. I'm going to send you a couple of copies of the manuscript to review. And hangs up. And just like that, the manuscript is on the way to Stephen R. Covey. A month later, I'm at this event where Dr. Covey's speaking. He speaks for an hour and a half, and I'm just mesmerized. I'm sitting there listening to him to, speak about the 7 habits, and all I can think about is this lost, soul convicted fellow in a prison 13 years earlier reading that book. And here I was, just a few feet away from the man who wrote the words. And he finishes speaking. He goes to the side of the stage. He's in this receiving line signing some books. And I see the guy that set the meeting up that day from the luncheon on the other side of the stage talking to who I presume to be his daughter, Julie. So I walked over there and I introduced myself to Julie. I thanked them for setting this meeting up. And I told them this was the most amazing night of my life. And as I'm sitting there talking to them, all of a sudden I feel a hand on my shoulder. And I turn around and there's Stephen R. Covey. At the time, he was about 75 years old, a little shorter than me, bald as a cue ball. And when I saw his face, I was speechless. I had all these amazing questions I wanted to ask because I'd been planning this meeting for a month, and I had all these amazing questions I wanted to ask, and I saw his face. I couldn't remember my own name. So I turned, and I'm like, Dr. Covey. And he looks at me and sees that I'm kind of verklempt. I can't really speak, and he says, man, I loved your book. And I said, I love your book too. I couldn't believe it. He's telling me he loved my book. I loved his book, me and 40 million other people, right? So he kind of laughed and he gives me this big giant hug, puts his arms around me the way a father hugs a son, the way I hug my son today. And he leans back and he bows his head. And he puts his right hand on my heart. We've got a picture of this in my office. One of my staff got the picture. He puts his right hand on my heart. And he repeats 3 times, you have a divine destiny. You have a divine destiny. You have a divine destiny. And he steps back. And I began to weep. And I said, Dr. Covey, what does that mean, I have a divine destiny? He said, son, I was about 45 at the time or so. He said, son, you in this story, people need to hear it. Because people need to know no matter how far down they've fallen, no matter how deep down that hole they are, if they will implement the principles of success, they can have whatever they want in life. We talked for about 15 or 20 minutes. He went on about his way. And the next morning, Monday morning, we began to call his office. We had the right phone numbers now. And after all, he said he loved this book, right? I get emotional just thinking about it. I got to tell you, it's crazy. So we find out very early on, the next Monday and Tuesday, is that it doesn't work that way, right? But I could see it. I love this book, Stephen R. Covey. I already had visualized it in my head, you know? And so the staff, we start calling his office, and we find out it doesn't work that way. It's up to a year to get a Stephen Covey endorsement. It's got to be, goes through a committee. It's got to be vetted. I mean, it's just extensive research. And the book comes out. We're like now at this point, we're in May of 2009. The thing's going to hardcover press in a couple of weeks, so we don't have a year. So we finally get the girl we're talking to at least call Dr. Covey and ask him if he'd be willing to do the endorsement. So she agrees to do it. She finds him. It's Wednesday before she reaches him. And he's traveling with his oldest daughter, Catherine. And she says, Dr. Covey, this guy you met Sunday night, he said that you loved the book. They want to know if they can use that for an endorsement. I told him it doesn't happen that way, but, told him I'd ask. So he says, hold on a second. And he turns to his oldest daughter, Catherine, who was traveling with him. And Catherine had just read the manuscript, and she loved it. And she just happened to be the chairwoman of the committee that makes the decisions about her father's endorsements. And on the spot, they agree to endorse the book. And they dictate it over the phone. That afternoon, I was speaking in San Francisco, so my speaking manager calls me and says, we got it. They're going to email it because the publisher had to have it in writing. So I go to my hotel room that night, and I open my email, and I see this endorsement from Stephen R. Covey. I'll just read it to you. I mean, it blows my mind. It says, this book comes from a magnificent person who learned the lessons of life out of profound prison experiences. Weldon Long's a true diamond in the rough, who produced this inspiring and illuminating account of his path he took from freedom and to prosperity, or to freedom and prosperity. But here's the crazy thing. I'm reading the email, and then I noticed the date. It was June 10th of 2009, 13 years to the day that my father had died, and I picked up a copy of The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Folks, I tell you that to tell you this. And by the way, if you want to read the story from Dr. Covey's perspective, Google Stephen Covey and Weldon Long, because he and I blogged about the whole series of events together. I tell you all that to tell you this. You don't have to know how it's going to happen. You don't have to know everything you need to do. You just got to believe it's going to happen, and you got to write it down, and you got to take the first step, the next first step. That's all you got to do. Now, in this program, I'm going to go into great detail about how you create the plan for where you want to be and how you figure out how to do the things you have to do. But right now, I just want you to know that you can live out of your imagination. And if you can see it and you can believe it and you can take the next first step, you can have it. So at the end of the day, folks, it's a very simple program, a very simple process to get the mind right. Change the thoughts, change the emotions, change the actions, change the results. It's brain science, but it's not rocket science. Now, in this program, I'm going to get into serious depth about how we change our mindset and how we accomplish great things in our life. But right now, I want you just to know, you just got to know it's going to happen. You don't have to know how. You just got to know it's going to happen, believe it's going to happen, and know the next thing you have to do. In the program, you're going to learn that your thoughts trigger your emotions trigger your actions, of course, create your results. And I'll teach you all of this in the context of what I call the upside of fear, the fear process. Fear is an acronym for focus, emotional commitment, action, and responsibility. And through that process, you'll have a chance to kind of see what's going on in here. Is it consistent with what I want today? What do I have to do? How do I program the subconscious mind to do the things I have to do? It's a very simple program. And again, it's not rocket science, but it is brain science. Very subtle brain science from 103 IQI perspective, but I promise you it is science.